Water level is nice and stable. Once the water reaches this level, you can turn on the return pump. At this point, the overflow may make some noise, so let me show you how to adjust it. Here is the valve. Start by opening it fully counterclockwise. Now it's completely open. Next, slowly turn the valve clockwise to begin dialing it back. If you want to keep track of your adjustments, you can mark the valve with a piece of tape. Let the system run for a few minutes. As the water circulates, the sound from the overflow will gradually fade. Eventually, the overflow should become completely silent. This is the normal operating water level in the display tank. Right now, it's just below the mark. Once the water rises to around this line, or slightly above or below it, the noise should disappear. Another helpful reference is the overflow teeth. On most tanks, lining the water level up with the midpoint of the teeth will silence the overflow. If you still hear noise, close the valve slightly more and let the system cycle again. You can also make adjustments to the sump baffle. Normally, the protein skimmer chamber runs at about 10 inches of water depth. Raise the baffle slightly, and you can also raise the water level in the refugium chamber a bit. Looking from the front, you will see a natural drop in water level across the sump. The skimmer chamber has the highest water level. The refugium chamber sits a little lower, and the return pump chamber is the lowest. That's why ATO water is usually added in the return pump chamber. Now let's check the overflow again. There's no noise, which means the valve adjustment worked. However, this is not the final water level yet. The system still needs some time to stabilize. Now we can see the return pump chamber getting a little low and starting to pull bubbles. That means we need to readjust the sump baffles. Lower the skimmer chamber slightly if the water level is too high, and also lower the refugium baffle a bit. Now the top water level looks good. The water sits just above the return nozzle and close to the upper overflow teeth. At this level, the system will effectively remove surface film from the water. Even if the water level is slightly lower, it will still remove surface film without any issues. The lower section of the sump creates a circulation zone, and the overflow box in the back is now completely silent. This tells us the water level is adjusted correctly. Another reference point is around the middle of this mark. If the display tank is quiet and surface film is being removed, the adjustment is correct. After running for a while, you may notice the water level slowly rising. This is completely normal. Water is still circulating through the system. After adjusting the valve, you should always give the system time before making further changes. If the water level continues to rise, slightly open the valve again and allow the system to cycle. Normally, the emergency drain should remain completely dry. If water starts flowing through the emergency drain, that means the display tank water level is too high. In that case, open the valve slightly and allow the system to circulate again. Now listen, the overflow is silent. Check the emergency drain as well. It should remain completely dry, which confirms the water level is correct. At this point, the overflow box is silent and the drain plumbing is dry. Everything is operating normally. Now that the water level is stable, we can mark the level so we can monitor it over time. We've been running for about 30 minutes, so we'll place a mark right here. A common question is how to remove surface film from the water. Simply angle the return nozzle slightly upward to create some surface agitation. You will see waves moving from the sides toward the center and flowing back into the overflow. If the flow is too strong and the surface film isn't returning, tilt the nozzle slightly downward to soften the flow. This creates a gentle cross flow inside the tank. To remove surface film, simply break it up and it will slowly drift back toward the overflow. If the flow is too strong and the film isn't returning, tilt the nozzles down slightly to soften the flow. Looking from above, The water flow looks like this. To remove surface film, simply break it up, and it will slowly drift back toward the overflow. Some pieces have already returned, and others are still moving back. If something sticks to the glass because of bubbles, just move it, and it will drift back to the overflow as well. This little piece is stuck to the glass by bubbles. Just move it, and it will drift back too. Now let's talk about what causes water level fluctuations. First, the total amount of water in the system stays the same, unless water evaporates. But since we use an ATO system, the total water volume stays consistent. The pipes themselves don't change size during operation, so the most common factor is the return pump. Check that the pump voltage and current are stable, and consider whether the pump has been running for a long time and may have lost some efficiency. Another factor is the sump water level. If the filter sock becomes clogged, the sock chamber can hold more water, which reduces the water level in the return pump chamber. When the return chamber has less water, the pump sends less water to the display tank, and the display tank water level drops. If you install a clean filter sock, water flows through more easily. The sump holds less water, and the display tank water level may rise slightly. In this situation, there's no need to adjust anything. The system will naturally find its balance again. If you adjust the valve every time you see a small change, it will actually make the system harder to stabilize. After running for more than an hour, the water level should become completely stable. Now let's simulate a power outage. We'll turn off the pump and observe what happens to the water level. Earlier, we marked the water level here. After shutting off the pump, the sump water level rises to this point. The check valve prevents backflow from the return line, but the main drain will still allow some water from the display tank to flow down. That's why the sump must have enough capacity, based on the display tank volume. The pump is currently completely off. Now we turn the pump back on. You can see the small red beads floating on the surface, slowly drifting toward the overflow. Look at small red beads. Most of them have already returned to the overflow area. After about 5 minutes of operation, the water level may not yet reach the original mark, but the overflow is silent, and the emergency drain remains dry. The sound you hear right now is coming from the drain chamber, because there is no filter roller or filter sock installed yet. Once those are installed, the sound will disappear. The emergency drain pipe is still dry. That is a good sign. This is where the filter sock goes. Once the filter sock is installed, it will be much quieter. After running overnight, the water level slowly returns to the marked line. All the floating beads return to the overflow. So there's no need to worry about temporary water level fluctuations. As long as the pump flow remains stable and the valve is not constantly adjusted, the system will return to equilibrium on its own. This applies after power outages and even when filter socks become clogged. If you keep adjusting the valve every time you see a small change, the system will only become more unstable. Thanks for watching, and we hope you enjoy using it.